be talking about quadratic functions. So basically speaking, whenever you have an equation in the format y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants and a does not equal 0, you have a quadratic function. What happens if a equals 0? Well, then we have 0 times x squared, and then we're left with y equals bx plus c, which looks a lot like y equals mx plus b, right? Yeah, we end up with a linear function, and that's not what we want. We want a quadratic function. So hey, there you are again, eh? All right, now the graph of a quadratic function is called a quadratic graph. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. So let's start with the most basic of quadratic graphs. We're going to go ahead and graph y equals x squared. I'm going to create an xy table and then plot some points from -3 to +3. I'm going to take -3, square it, and I end up with a +9. I'm going to do the same with -2 and get a +4, work all the way down. Now what you'll find is when you're done and you plot those points and you graph them, you end up with a graph that looks like this. You've got a nice curvy U thing happening. That curvy U thing that's happening there has a specific name. That is called a parabola. So whenever you're talking about a parabola, you're talking about the graph of a quadratic function. In this case, this parabola opens upward. So as it opens up, you could see, hey, it looks kind of like a smiley face, right? Right? Are you with me there? No? All right. Now, parabolas have specific terms, specific points that help identify the parabola itself. In this case, when a parabola opens upward, it has a minimum point. That minimum point is the lowest point of the parabola. You'll notice it there. It's usually referred to by its xy coordinate. The parabola also has a line of symmetry. A line of symmetry is an imaginary line that cuts the parabola exactly in half. You'll notice it has a special relationship there with the x value. And we often refer to it, by its x value. So we could say x equals whatever that point is. Now, a parabola can have two x-intercepts, one x-intercept, or in this case, 0 x-intercepts because it does not cross the x-axis at any point. It does, however, have a y-intercept, and we can see that there. A parabola will always have a y-intercept. At some point, even though you can't see it, it will cross the y-axis. So now that we've taken a look at y equals x squared, why don't we go ahead now and take a look at y equals -x squared. So if we think about our order of operations, I'm going to square my x value first, and then multiply it to get that negative value, so that when I square -3, I end up with a +9, but oh, it's negative, so then I end up with a -9. I go ahead and plot the rest of my points in my xy graph, and what happens here is that we see the parabola opens downward. Now, it opens downward. Yeah, you can see it's a little sad. Even though it opens downward, we still refer to it as a parabola. Whether it opens up or down, it's a parabola. Remember, the parabola is the term for a quadratic graph. Now, the big difference here is that you'll notice the parabola has a maximum point as opposed to a minimum point. This is the highest point in the graph. And as we go ahead and label this xy coordinate, we could see that my x value is about 1/2, and my y value looks to be 1.5. So there's my xy coordinate for my maximum point. This parabola also, or still if you like, has a line of symmetry. That's that x value that cuts the parabola directly in half. And you could see if I'm to label this point, I would say x equals 1/2. Now in this case, the parabola has two x-intercepts. I have a point there and a point there. It crosses through the x-axis at 2 points. So if I'm to label those coordinates, it looks like I have x equals a +1 1/3, y is 0, and x equals a -3, and then my y value is 0. And then also, if I am to label the y-intercept, I didn't have it listed, but we should label it anyway too. We could see it crosses the y-axis at 0, 1. As long as I've been given those 4 points, I'm pretty sure I can graph any parabola. And hey, that's what you're going to do right now. You're going to draw the graph of y equals x squared minus 4x plus 4. You're going to label the minimum or maximum point. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to figure it out when you take a look at it. I want you to label the line of symmetry and the x-intercepts, if they exist. That's all for now.